A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. A Tale of Two Cities, 1859, is a novel by Charles Dickens, set in London and Paris before and during the French Revolution, with well over 200 million copies sold. It ranks among the most famous works in the history of fictional literature. Introduction. A Tale of Two Cities was written by Dickens in 1849. It was written in 3 parts, released one part at a time throughout 1849. It's set against the backdrop of the French Revolution, begins in 1775. Introduction to the novel. The life of Charles Dickens, caste system in France, the French Revolution, and important locations mentioned. Charles Dickens, born in 1812, died in 1870. Charles Dickens was born on February 7, 1812. His father was sent to the death house when Dickens was 12. He worked in a shoe polish factory to pay off his father's debts. In 1836, he married his wife, Catherine Hogarth. Dickens had 10 children, but 2 died before him. Some of his most famous titles include A Tale of Two Cities, A Christmas Carol, David Copperfield, Oliver Twist, and Great Expectations. Now it's time for a little history lesson. The period represented in A Tale of Two Cities was between 1757 and 1794. The incidents of the novel took place between London and Paris. Now let's have a look on the social conditions in France before the French Revolution in the 18th century. On the throne of France, there was a king called Louis XVI. The king has an absolute power. And on the throne of France, there was a queen called Marie Antoinette. This is King Louis XVI, and this is Marie Antoinette. Well, the French society was divided into the upper class, includes the nobles or the aristocrats, and the rest of the nation, the middle class and the mob. French caste system, pre-revolution, king, the monarchy, first estate, clergy, second estate, nobility, represented by Marquis Evremond here in the novel, third estate, everyone else, like Monsieur Devarge. King Louis XVI. He came to power after the death of his father, Louis XV, in May 1774. Married Marie Antoinette, Archduchess of Austria. He was the last king of France and was executed by guillotine on January 21, 1793. He governed France as an absolute monarch. He opposed meeting of the Estates General. The estates of the realm couldn't present their demands, couldn't try to limit the king's power. Louis XVI was an awkward, clumsy man who had a good heart but was unable to relate to people on a personal level. He often appeared unfeeling and gruff. He was insecure and seems to have disliked being king of France. When one of his ministers resigned, he was heard to remark, "Why can't I resign too?" Marie Antoinette, in her early years as queen, was flighty and irresponsible. She was from Austria-Hungary, and the marriage was used as an alliance between countries. She spent huge amounts on clothes, buying a new dress nearly every other day. Being Austrian, she was terribly unpopular in France and had few friends. Political system, absolute monarchy. King Louis XVI in France was the first absolute monarch. He took control of the government without a prime minister. He ruled according to his own wish without asking advice from his ministers or the general estates, like the parliament. He created a system of centralized and efficient power. He controlled his people tightly, including the nobles. He defended the divine origin of his power. He considered himself to be the incarnation of the state. L'État c'est moi, which means I am the state. He developed a complete program of propaganda and self-glorification. These are some photos about the nobility's lifestyle. This is Marie Antoinette, the palace at Versailles and the Hall of Mirrors. Pre-revolutionary France. The caste system in France left the people of France poor and starving, while the nobility prospered. Taxation was very high on all items because France didn't trade many goods. And that's how the government earned its money. The people were also made to pay a tenth of what they earned to the church. France had also made an alliance with America and were helping fund the American Revolution. In general, we can say the aristocrats were the privileged class. They lived for their own interests and pleasure. They didn't have to pay taxes. Any nobleman had the right to send any of the ordinary citizens to the Bastille without trial if he wrote a lettre de cachet against him. What was a lettre de cachet? A lettre de cachet was a document on which a nobleman could write the name of anyone whom he wanted to get rid of. A person so named could be sent to spend the rest of his life in the Bastille without trial and without knowing the reason of his imprisonment or his accusation, often to die. He even had no right to know the name of his accuser. On the other hand, the life of the poor people or the mob, the poor peasants were oppressed by the aristocrats. Most of them were poor peasants and lived in acute misery. They had to pay heavy taxes to the church, to the state, the landlords, and local taxes. They never had enough to eat and had almost no rights. They were living under the mercy of the rich nobles. They knew nothing in their lives but the taste of black bread and death. This scene shows how people were living in poverty and in misery. They knew nothing in their lives but the taste of black bread and death. This is Saint Antoine Street, and this is Monsieur Duvarge's wine shop. One of the casks was broken. The poor peasants will leave everything in their hands and they will hurry to lick the muddy wine. One of the poor people, called Gaspard, will write the word blood on the wall. Monsieur Duvarge came and he will shout at him because he didn't want him to be arrested by the nobles. The poor people licked the muddy wine till the last drop. This is the casks of wine. It was broken. One of them was broken. The poor people hurried in the street to lick the muddy wine with their hands. This shows their poverty. This is Monsieur Duvarge watching them. This is Gaspard writing the word blood on the wall. Monsieur Duvarge was very angry. He shouted at him, "You might be executed." And he began to rub the word blood from the wall. The poor people didn't leave the street until they licked the whole wine in the street. Dear God, it seems that they knew nothing in their lives but the taste of black bread and death. And this is the result. The French Revolution broke out. Let's move to the main events during the French Revolution. The storming of the Bastille and the Great Fear, the March of Versailles, rifts in the Assembly, the Reign of Terror, the beheading of the royal family and nobility. A group known as the Directory was formed. Storming of the Bastille. On July 14, 1789, more than 800 Parisians gathered outside the Bastille, a medieval fortress used as a prison. They demanded weapons believed to be stored there. The commander of the Bastille opened fire on the crowd, and a battle ensued in which many people were killed. The storming of the Bastille quickly became a symbol of the French Revolution, a blow to tyranny. Today, the French still celebrate July 14th as Bastille Day. The National Assembly acts. Women march on Versailles. In early October, 6,000 women marched 13 miles in pouring rain from Paris to Versailles to confront the king. Crowds' anger was directed at Marie Antoinette. Women wouldn't leave unless King agreed to return to Paris. Now let's move to the social conditions in England before the French Revolution in the 18th century. On the throne of England, there was a king called King George III, and the queen was Sophia Charlotte. King George III. King George III was the king of Great Britain. He had a wife named Charlotte and 10 sons. His actions sparked the rebellion which led to war. He was inspiration for the loyalist side, although he didn't fight in the battle himself. This is his wife, Sophia Charlotte. Well, in England there was unrest and disorder because people were afraid of the robbers. The English government was busy in conquering more colonies from North America and Canada. They neglected their internal affairs, and as a result, robberies spread everywhere in England, and people doubted each other. So the King of England was too busy handling his country's problems with the American colonies to worry about his own people's poverty. The king and nobles weren't concerned with the poor people. That's why there was much poverty and crime in the city of London. The roads were full of gangsters. Most of them were poor and highway robbers. That's why traveling wasn't safe at that time in England. Travelers had to wrap their faces to the cheekbones. They suspected each other. They were afraid that someone might be a robber or in league with robbers. Here we come to the final part in our video. Important locations mentioned in the novel: the Bastille, the Old Bailey, and Saint Antoine Street. The Bastille. It was famous prison fortress in Paris. Storming of the Bastille during the French Revolution. Dr. Manette spent 18 years there. Saint Antoine, a suburb near Paris, where the Devarges wine house is located. Old Bailey Courthouse. The courthouse located in central London dealt with the major cases of England, located in Crown Court, where Lucy Manette lived, and where Charles Darnay is charged with treason, where we are introduced to Sydney Carton. Settings: Tellson's Bank in London, the first picture. On the right, Bastille Prison in Paris. The last picture, Devarges wine shop in Paris. Well, A Tale of Two Cities. This is Sydney Carton, and this is La Guillotine. Now we come to the end of our video. Thanks for watching. Mrs. Mona Asad. Thank you.